You know, this next guest on the Mark Thompson Show, former KGO talk show host, first of all, the writer and performer of one man plays, which are incredible, performing in San Francisco and other places. We'll talk to him about that. Author, and now novelist as well. I mean, his list of accomplishments doesn't end. He's our friend Brian Copeland, everybody. Hey, Brian.
Hey, it's not that it doesn't end. It's just I can't hold a job. That's basically what
Maybe it's just you're having a.
Brian, absolute pleasure.
Do you guys know each other? Because you kind of run in comedy circles together.
No, I don't believe
No?
we have we met.
Yeah, I don't think so, but I feel like I'm missing out. And how often do you get down to the Southland, down in Los Angeles?
Performing mainly, it's just doing solo shows. And actually, I haven't been down there. There's a theater across the street from, I think it was Paramount, where I was doing shows for a while until the shutdown. And so I haven't been down there working since before the shutdown. So it's been a minute. It's been a minute.
Gotcha. Well, I'd love to keep my eye out because I'm a big fan of solo work and all sorts of theater. So,
speaking of your solo work, this is a critically acclaimed one-man show that's still running, right?
Well, actually, I brought it back. Is what they did. My very first one, Not a Genuine Black Man.
Yeah.
It was the very first show opened in 2004 that went on to become the longest running solo show in San Francisco theatrical history. And we went off Broadway, and that one I did in LA for a while. And Rob Reiner was working with me to develop it for television. And I realized about 8 months ago that this was the 20th anniversary of its debut. I've done 5. So I did Genuine for like, I think 6 years or 7 years or something. And I noticed 2 things were happening. That this year was this month rather was the 20th anniversary, as well as my 1,000th performance was coming up. So I brought it back for just 4 special performances at the Marsh in San Francisco, where it started. We had the 1,000th show last Saturday night, which was just great. It was a packed crowd, and it was just so nice to be back in that space and doing the show where it all started. So I've got a new one called Grandma and Me, an ode to single parents that ran for about a little over a year. Opened in October of 22, and we just won the award for outstanding solo performance of 2023 by Broadway World. So I'm all over the place with these, but I've got 2 more performances in January. Thank you.
I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank
Brian,
you.
I really admire that skill set, and just to be able to sustain a show, like create a show, and then as a performer, hold an audience wrapped for an extended period. Do you work with a director, or do you direct your own work as well?
Oh no, I work with a director, or it would just be 2 hours of really good intentions. That's what it would be. David Ford is my director and collaborator on all of my shows. The best thing that David does is it's not so much what's on the stage, but it's what he keeps me from putting on the stage. Is really what his biggest gift is.
Sure.
No, we don't do that. That won't work, or So, but it's I never thought this was a lark. I did stand up for 20 years. I had always wanted to try a one-man show, and I got this advice from Carl Reiner to find the piece of ground that I alone stood on and write from there. And so I was an anonymous letter I got from a KGO listener saying that I wasn't a genuine Black man. And I thought about, okay, why do people say that to me sometimes? And it's because I grew up in San Leandro, California, next to Oakland, at a time when it was, depending on whose numbers you believe, between 95 and 99% white in my family. So I decided I was going to write about what it was like to be different. And so I hooked up with David. It was a lark. I was going to do it for 6 weeks. I was booked at the Improv in San Jose at the end of 6 weeks, and critics came and liked it, and the people came and kept coming. And so it completely shifted my career. I still do some stand-up here and there, but mostly I do this. And the great part about this is I can still do stand-up, but I can, there are portions of it that are stand-up and are comedy, but I can also go to do drama, and it doesn't have to just be laugh, 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 laugh. And the greatest part about it is that the drama makes the comedy funnier because it's a release for the audience, and the comedy makes the drama hit harder. So it's a real interesting way to work.
And you said the piece of ground that you stand on, and I love that. But at the same time, it's universal, because the idea of like people are not a monolith. People contain multitudes, and you can't just put one type of person, whatever your ethnicity, gender, etc., in a box like that. So I really like. I haven't seen it, but just I love that through line and that theme. That's beautiful.
Okay, and you encapsulate it perfectly. That's exactly it. Nobody has the right to determine who you are but you. And what's interesting is I found when I did the play, and I subsequently wrote a book based on the play, I found out that this goes on with every culture, that there are Asians who consider other Asians to be too white, so they call them bananas, yellow on the outside, white on the inside. Latinos, they will call them coconuts. You're white on the inside, but brown on the outside. And it's like, who are these race police people that get to decide what is authentic and who is not?
I'll tell you who one race police person is. Trump. Yeah, like, I'm a Jew, and he said, if you're a Jew and you don't vote for me, you're not a real Jew. I'm like, what?
Anyway. I think it's completely offensive. It's a way to put people down and take away from their accomplishments. You heard during Barack Obama's administration, oh, he's not a real black man. He's not, he might look black, but he's not really black, right? It's the same thing with that being said to you. And it's a way to kind of lessen your accomplishments by saying, oh, he's not really black. No.
And most of it comes from, that letter came from someone who self-identified in the letter as being African American. So most of that stuff comes from within your own race. Going like you're talking about being what Trump said about not being Jewish if you didn't vote for him. When I wrote the book based on that play, I was at an author's luncheon, and Mike Wallace, the great Mike Wallace, had a book that was out. And mine hadn't come out yet. And so I was seated next to him, and we were talking, and he asked what my book was about. And I told him, and he laughed, and he goes, you know what? I get that. And I go, really? He said, yeah. He goes, anytime I do any story that takes Israel to the woodshed for anything, I will get hundreds of letters at 60 Minutes from people saying, you're not a real Jew, because no real Jew would ever criticize Israel under any circumstances. Wow. So it happens in every culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. That resonates. It really does.
Speaking of your book, let's talk about it. This is really interesting. And the premise, I mean, I wonder if it came from a place of your personal outrage. The book is called Outraged, and you could tell us what it's about too, but it kind of starts with the outrage about police officers being able to shoot black men, or black African Americans in general, right? It doesn't have to be a man, but usually is, and not facing any repercussions, and the outrage that stems from that. Did that kind of start from a place where it was your own personal outrage, and then you kind of got creative with that storyline, or how did that come to be?
I'll tell you something really funny about the title. I wrote this during the pandemic, and really what the impetus for this was boredom. I always wanted to
good catalyst.
I'd always want to write a thriller, always. And I was just bored. I shows I was supposed to be performing the Grandma and Me, and that got pushed back, and I'm bored. So I would get up every morning, and I had this idea, because we had I still live in San Leandro, and we had the shooting of an unarmed African American man in the parking lot of Walmart who was mentally ill. Who needed mental help, as opposed to law enforcement should not have been involved in this. And so I thought about what happens when police officers do this, and what do their families go through in the aftermath, and what do the families of the victims go through in the aftermath and of one of those tragedies. And so that's where the whole idea came from. It is and my protagonist is named Topher Davis, and he's a TV investigative reporter in San Francisco, African American, and his sister is named Lynn Sloan, and I took the name from a mutual friend of ours. Awesome. I go, guess what? I'm using your name in my book. And she's a SFPD homicide, and somebody is shooting is committing murders against police officers who have not been punished for doing this. And so their job is to try to figure out who's doing it. So my original working title for this, the entire time that I was writing this book, and and my agent was looking at it, we were thinking about starting to send it around, was what usually happens when to police officers in this case is they get put on administrative leave. Mm-hmm. So the original title for that book was administrative leave. That's what it was called. And
which wouldn't have been bad.
Yeah, I didn't think so. But what they said was, with the feedback we got from publishers we submitted to was, it doesn't sound like a crime novel. Administrative leave, people look at it and it doesn't sound like a crime novel. So what does? Right. So it was my agent who came up with the title Outrage. And I thought, I like that. Yeah, so that's where it came from. I didn't title it, but my title was, look in my computer and the file says administrative leave.
Is it a completely different process from writing a play to writing a novel, or is there a lot of overlap?
It's not completely different. In terms of the way that I work is I have a quota every day. Best book I ever read about writing was Stephen King's book On Writing.
Yes.
This was the first book that he wrote after getting, you read it? First book that he wrote after getting hit by a van. And the first half of it is his autobiography as a writer, how he started as a kid and up to selling Carrie and so forth. And the second part is primer about how to write and how not to use adverbs and things like that. And he said you should write 1,000 words a day. So when I'm writing prose, like something like a book, and I've done a couple of them, I do 1,000 words a day, 5 days a week. And you want between 60 and 80,000 words is the sweet spot. If I'm writing a script, for example, like the script version of this, I'll write five pages a day, just 5 script pages a day, because it's not as many words. What's different though about writing a crime novel, I found, and I studied it. I really read tons. I've been reading them for years, and I really started to study how they work. Is that after you're done with the first draft, you know what's going to happen. Okay, because you really don't. I really don't know always what's going to happen when I start. I know, and the reason I say I'm talking about this as multiples because they like this one so much they asked for a second one, and
this is
the
great.
second one will come out April of next year. It's already written. They've already got it. And they sent me the cover yesterday, which is great. And the second one is called Shadows of Justice. And what the thing is with these books is I want to do social commentary about race. So the first one is about the shootings. What Shadows of Justice is about is the disparity in attention and media coverage and police attention between when a white woman goes missing and when a woman of color goes missing. Mm-hmm. So I want these books. They have the thriller element. They've got the mystery element to it and solving the crime and who did it. But I want them to be about something. So, but the fun part about it is that okay, by the end, I start with knowing who did it and why. That's what you have to know: who committed the crime and why. So by the time I get to the end, then I can go back and drop in clues, earlier because I know what's going to end, so I can how it's going to end. So that's a different thing, a different element as opposed to writing plays.
You're really dealing with fascinating didactic material here, Brian. And I'm wondering, as an author and just as a human being, how difficult is it to separate the emotion and the power? Because, I am newsflash, I'm not African American, but some of these situations have me roiling. Just like I think about Tamir Rice, he was playing with a toy gun in the park, and I used to play with toy guns as a kid, and I'm like, I see myself and just the injustice. But how hard is it to separate the emotion and the power of that with, I'm an artist and a creative storyteller?
It's cathartic, really.
Mm-hmm.
Where the emotion, you'll see the emotion in me most when I'm performing. When I'm performing on stage, you'll see the emotion. In terms of writing like this, I step back into the role of commentator, where I'm looking at it and I am giving commentary on, there's a whole back and forth between Topher and his sister, Len, again, he's a reporter, she's a cop.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole back and forth about how hard it is to get rid of a bad officer and why it's unfair to blame all officers for the actions of a few bad apples or those who aren't properly trained or whatnot. And that's something that, if you and I were having that conversation, I could really heat about. But I was able to step back. I show both sides of the argument. I put it through the out of the mouths of the characters, and I can disassociate myself somewhat. Now, if I were doing this as a stage piece, you would see more, because it would come through as appropriate, as the actor in me would come out, and the emotion would come out as appropriate.
I have to say I'm a little offended, honestly, that you picked Lynn Sloan's name over mine. I don't even know, I don't know how to feel about that, Brian Copeland.
Well, I'm thinking about the next book, and the next book will be the Kim McAllister story.
Oh, is that will be out? Okay, well, I don't know. Did you ever in your life, did you know you had novels sitting in there? Or did they just, you said it was boredom during the pandemic, but did you ever think in this lifetime you'd be a novelist like this? This is cool.
Well, I'll tell you, I decided that I wanted to do this back in 2000. I went on like a personal retreat. I was going through a divorce and all this other personal stuff was going on. So I went to this place in San Diego where you spend 2 weeks eating raw food and drinking wheatgrass juice.
Okay. How very new agey of you.
Which was just disgusting.
Were there any crystals?
Basically, that kind of, you name it, that kind of place. And so I made up a list of all the, I had a lot of time to think. So I made up a list of all the things that I knew that I wanted to do. And I called it my someday list. Today they call it a bucket list, but that phrase, and it was just funny because I ended up being in that movie. But that phrase, most people don't know, was invented by the screenwriter of that movie. The phrase bucket list was not in the vernacular. The screenwriter made it up. So I made up what I call my someday list, and on it was to do a one-man show. On it was to do a crime fiction book because I've loved that stuff since reading the Hardy Boys as a kid. And then in high school I shifted to Perry Mason books. And read them all. And so my first book ended up being based on the one-man play. I thought they would be a crime novel, and I never got around to it but I knew that I'd write. I've been a writer since. I had my first column in the weekly throwaway paper. I had a column when I was 12. They gave me 200 words a week. I could write about whatever I wanted. I didn't get paid, but I got 200 words a week to write about whatever I wanted. And, and I found the first one, and I'm just looking at it, and shake your head, and you wince, and I think, okay, give myself a break. Yeah, you were 12. You were 12.
But you had a voice at 12. It's important because you got used to using your voice, right? You had a voice at 12. You had an opinion at 12. You were forced to think about things and put that on paper. So that's huge. A lot of people don't have that outlet. And then you come to KGO. You have this another outlet where you can express yourself. And now you're still doing talk shows and other shows on YouTube, correct?
Yeah. Well, actually, I've got a podcast called Copeland's Corner. And I took a segment from my radio show that I did for KGO called Headliners on the Headlines. And what it is I get a group of 3 comics every week, and we spend an hour talking about the news of the week. And sometimes it's heavy, sometimes it's funny. Hal, as I'm sure comics are, people don't realize, but comics are some of the smartest people in the world. We have to be because of the fact that we read everything and study
an observer
to write comic. So some people like comics. What do they know about current events? Everything. Quite frankly, everything, because we have to. So what I have a podcast called Copeland's Corner. We've done 179 of them. And again, then that started right before the shutdown. And then we were doing it in person the first time, 2 or 3 before the shutdown. Then we shifted it to YouTube. And we started shifted it rather to Zoom, and we started doing it on YouTube as well as having an audio version of it. I think we've done about 12 shows that you can get on YouTube right now. So you have a choice; you can get it wherever you get your podcast and listen to it, or you can watch it.
That's so cool. Hey, Brian, just out of curiosity, What else you got on that Sunday list?
Sunday list.
What's left? What's left for you?
I did everything, just about everything. It was to make be in a major motion picture with something that was on it, and then I ended up, because I'm not a genuine black man. That's how I ended up reading. It was Carl Reiner, who was a guest on my KGO show, who really set me in motion to write that story. And then
that is so cool. A legend.
Oh, absolute legend. And he loved what it was that he had me send him a tape of the show. I sent it to him. He loved it so much he gave it to Rob, and Rob decided he wanted to develop it. So I ended up in the bucket list, although my scenes mostly got cut. And I just 2 weeks ago I did a part in Spinal Tap 2.
Wow.
We shot in New Orleans. So that was on my list. So I've been in 3. I've been in the Bucket List, Spinal Tap 2, and the second Venom, the last Venom movie. I was in. I played a reporter.
Right on. Well, Brian, I think you got to get a little out of the box here as far as your bucket list, and maybe like visit Antarctica or something like that.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm not climbing rock mountains. I'm not doing any of that stuff. None of that stuff.
I thought Walter's comment was interesting. He says comics are the modern day of philosophers.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Would you agree with that, Hal?
Absolutely, because you take either some deep thoughts or some just powerful information, and you wrap a laugh around it, and it's like putting the medicine in the ice cream. You're giving people, you're making people think, and laughter is a conduit for that. Like laughter, it disarms you, and comedy. And also, if you look at horror movies also have some big picture ideas that are buried within the jump scares and the slasher and everything. Oh, what is it trying to say? I think that's why I like someone like Jordan Peele, or there are some other people who have moved from comedy to horror. Like, I think those are 2 avenues where you can explore deeper material. But yeah, absolutely, I agree with that about comics being philosophers.
I do too, because that's and you nailed it. You hit it right on the head. And I could get in your face and do and give you a 5-minute or 10-minute diatribe about why assault weapons should be illegal, or I could write a 10-minute piece that's entertaining, that makes you laugh and make the same point. And so, which one are you going to listen to? Which one is going to resonate with you? Which one are you going to immediately just tune out and say, I don't need to hear your diatribe?
Well, and that's why
the laughter will disarm people. And then maybe you can talk about disarming people.
That's pretty good. That's why they say most people get their news from the Daily Show, right? That's why it was so popular, and why most people got their news from there, because yes, it was comedy, but it was also something completely different. It was also real stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then actually they still do. They find it a lot of millennials and Gen Zers. That's where they get from the Daily Show and from John Oliver, who I think is brilliant. I just started watching John Oliver, and Bill Maher is turned into the guy who's yelling, "Get off my lawn!"
A little bit.
He's turned into the "Get off my grass" guy. There was always that guy in the neighborhood where if you kicked your ball over the fence in his yard, he kept it. That's Bill Maher right now.
Yeah, he's saying get off my grass, and also get off my grass.
Brian Copeland, what an absolute pleasure to have you on the Mark Thompson Show. I've been trying for a while, but I didn't give you enough notice. This time I did, and I'm so glad that you came on.
Well, thanks for having me on. And I want to mention that Outraged is available everywhere. It's at every bookstore, Amazon, of course, but also at places like Walmart and Target. Have gotten. You made it once you hit Target. That's when you made it.
Have you made it to Costco, though? I mean, that's really...
No.
Yeah, can people buy your book in bulk?
I'm going to spend Saturday going on a tour of stores to see who's got it, and I'm going to hit Costco. We have the actual... what I wanted to mention is we have the launch of the book at Book Passage in Corte Madera on Sunday at 4:00, and Michael Krasny, another KGO alum, is going to interview me, and there will be refreshments. There'll be food, so come for the food.
Awesome. No, that's great. So that's at 4 o'clock at Book Passage in Corte Madera on Sunday?
On Sunday. Mm-hmm. You can
Okay,
come on out.
perfect.
I'll sign your book for you.
I'd love it. Well, I'm not going to have a copy of Outraged unless it's signed. I mean, come on.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's a given.
Congratulations on the book. Congratulations on everything. There is a link in the show description if you are looking to find out more about the book. There's a link there with a place where you can purchase it, but apparently it's available for sale everywhere. So you probably didn't need my little link after all.
What?
Thanks, Brian. Have a great rest of your day.
Brian,
Nice
what a
meeting you,
pleasure.
Hal. Thanks for having me.
You too.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell, you'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.